Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to our first Focus on Safety series here live on YouTube and Facebook. Thanks for joining us live. My name is Larry Leach, and I'm the proud Executive Director of 12 Community Safety Initiative. 12 CSI acknowledges the 12 communities that are on traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising of Siksika, Piikani, Kainai First Nations. In 1887, the area signed Treaty 7, thanks for joining us live. Which includes, my name is Larry Leach, which includes Blackfoot Confederacy, Tsuut'ina First Nation, and Stoney Nakoda, which is the Chiniki, Bearspaw, Wesley First Nations. The city of Calgary is also home to Métis Inuit and visiting Indigenous nations status and non-status. Tonight, we're going to discuss a very important and timely topic, cybersecurity in the age of a pandemic. Thank you to the City of Calgary Community Standards Fund for contributing in helping us produce this. And we will have many other videos down the road that focus on safety. First, a few housekeeping points. We'll hope that you'll help us by clicking the like button on our presentation on Facebook or YouTube. Also like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And that way you won't miss any of our fantastic videos. In 2021, we're going to be very ambitious, and we're going to be running at least 2 videos a week, live presentations around helping community associations and diverse audiences. And then we're also going to have a youth focus on safety in the new year as well. So if you subscribe to our channels and like our Facebook, you'll be sent notifications for all those. And hopefully you'll learn lots and keep safe out there. This will be recorded, so you can go back and watch it again or recommend it to others. The presentation will be about an hour long, followed by a half an hour of questions. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and I will ask as many of the questions as time will allow. Our presenter is Kathy Macdonald. She is a retired police officer from the Calgary Police Service with over 3 decades of investigative and crime prevention experience. She instructs cybersecurity courses through the University of Calgary Faculty of Continuing Education and is one of the leading investigators in Toddington International, a global leader in open source and intelligent training. Kathy recently published Cybercrime, Awareness, Prevention, and Response, a comprehensive Canadian resource talking about how cybercrime affects individuals, business, governments, institutions, and organizations. And she's a good friend of ours at 12 CSI, and we've had her at our live presentations before, and she is fantastic. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Kathy Macdonald.
Well, thank you very much, Larry and Daphne. I really appreciate the invitation as well. And I do want to say congratulations for all the work that you do in public safety in the community. You've really done a great job. So thank you so much for inviting me. I do hear an echo, just so you know.
Maybe I should mute.
Okay. But yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really thrilled to be here, and I'm happy to volunteer my time to talk about cybersecurity. It's such an important topic, especially right now with this pandemic. So again, I'm hoping you're going to enjoy this presentation. So without further ado, I guess I'm just going to start the actual presentation, and we'll go from there. All right. So again, cybersecurity in the age of pandemic. I started back in early 2000 in the area of cybersecurity and cyber awareness. And back then, you know, Facebook wasn't around. We didn't have privacy settings. We were getting calls all the time from the media, from the public, asking us questions. And it was hard to keep up and stay ahead. And it still is today. It's a constant curve of learning what is going on. But one thing I can tell you for sure is that the cyber criminals have not changed changed that much over the years. They are still heartless. They are brazen. They change their behavior depending upon the situation, and they are very transnational in scope. And right now, specifically during an uncertain time like a pandemic, they have advantages. And, you know, while we're feeling, I would think, you know, I know that we're concerned, we're worried, we're anxious, we're thinking about our families and our businesses and our kids and our grandparents, and we're feeling somewhat powerless and vulnerable, I would say. And while we're feeling this, the cyber criminals are trying to think up ways to scam us, and they're doing a job like you would expect. They're going after people that want company and are feeling kind of isolated right now. And they're trying to buy a puppy or a kitten. And so they're trying to scam us. And these are the kind of people that we're dealing with. They really are heartless. So we need to be strong. We need to understand we're going to come out of this. And when we do, we want to make sure that we are still pretty secure with our finances and our emotional well-being. So thinking about how to be recognizing online risk, talking about personally identifiable information, which is really the target. This is what they're after from us. And talking about being proactive is really, really important, because across the board, crimes against people, crimes against technology, from cyberbullying, luring, revenge porn, online fraud, delivery thefts, malicious URLs, credential stuffing, it just goes on and on and on. It has grown exponentially because of this pandemic. It was hard to keep up before. It's going to be just as hard afterwards to keep up with what's going on. And I really think that this pandemic has been the perfect storm for what is known as social engineering. And I'll talk a little bit about that, because these are techniques and tactics and procedures used, we call them TTPs, used by social engineers to really scam us and trick us. And it's very deliberate. They use anonymity very well. They use temporary email addresses, temporary text messages. They can use very well-crafted and believable stories, because they gain reconnaissance. They do reconnaissance on us in social media. So they have very believable stories when they send us emails and phishing emails and such. They may use disguises. They can certainly use impersonations like background noises. They stage events, and they can also do what's known as volumetric attacks. So they can not only do tens, thousands, but tens of thousands of phishing emails or credential stuffing attacks, which I'll explain a little bit later. But more than anything, what they can do is they can weaponize emotions. They weaponize emotions against us. We're already fairly fragile, I would think, because of what we're seeing and what's going on in our lives. But fear is an extremely powerful emotion, and they use it against us, and they get us to do things based on those weaponized emotions, actually against our better judgment. It says here, fear, not data, shapes the public's view of COVID-19. And then, of course, we see these headlines, you know, in the media. We see them on the radio and TV, and it seems pretty hopeless. You know, I mean, these are scary headlines that we're seeing every single day. And these cyber criminals take advantage of this, and they take advantage of our emotions right now. They know that, you know, cyber criminals know that by nature, we're very trusting and we want to help. They take advantage of that. They deceive us because of that, and it's very deliberate as well. So just want to kind of go over some of these numbers just to show this growth in cybercrime across the board, from youth sexual exploitation, revenge porn, cyberbullying, online child exploitation. They have grown exponentially in Canada, the US, Australia, the UK, India, a 245% increase in revenge porn in Australia, 81% spike in April, May, and June of this year here in Canada for youth sexual exploitation. So these kinds of crimes have grown exponentially, as I mentioned, and cyberbullying in particular. You know, people think, oh, cyberbullying, it's name calling, it's jokes and things like that. No, it's not. It's a massively devastating, serious crime. And actually it involves intimate images that are distributed without the consent of the person in the video or in the photograph. And these pictures were taken when there was an expectation of privacy. And for the most part, this is for a crime for people of any age, not just for kids and teenagers and youth. It's for any age. And, you know, when these intimate images hit the internet, they become part of an industry where people are actually doxxed. The subjects in those videos are doxxed, and then they are harassed and asked for more and more pictures. They're blackmailed and coerced and extorted, and it can last for a long time, and it's really very devastating. When it comes to luring, this is against the law in Canada. It's against the law to communicate with a person under the age of 18 for a sexual purpose through the computer or online. But there are groups of people that go into these underground forums. They look for vulnerable kids, especially right now, and they talk to them and they look for them, and then they loop them into other kids that are possibly taking off their clothes in front of a camera. And of course, once they've got those pictures that are very valuable to the subject, they start to extort them and blackmail them. And again, it's very, very traumatic for these young people, but it is increasing because of this pandemic. So it's something that we have to be really careful of. And although arrests are being made in Canada, in the US, in Alberta, those pictures are still circulating in cyberspace, and they're victimizing and re-victimizing kids, and especially when they hit the pornography industry. And Pornhub is just one example of a website owned here in Canada, and there are many dozens of websites under their umbrella, and they have some of these categories like leaked Snapchat videos or voyeurism, where people don't even know their images are being circulated through the porn industry, and it's, again, very devastating. When it comes to fraud, same thing. It has increased because of this pandemic. In one survey through the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, 77% of people said they've seen an increase in fraud in 2020, and they expect it to increase and continue to increase. Now, the CFE believed it was because of people are online, they're using technology for meetings, they're not meeting face-to-face, which could possibly be. You know, and that's where the cyber criminals go. So here's a Zoom notification, you know, you're supposed to be on a call right now. So you get this link and it says, hey, join into this call. So you go to log in. They send you, conveniently, they'll send you a login page. And of course you log in. And when you put your password in there, they now know that. They go in, they change your password. So you have no longer got access to your Zoom account. Or worse yet, they go into your Zoom account, they automatically forward a notification. So the next time you're on a Zoom call, they get notified and they join in on the call with you. And now they get access to your virtual background, your photos, your iCloud meetings and such. So they go where we go, and they look to see ways to scam us and really compromise us. When we're using these kinds of platforms, there's a few things to think about. If you can, set your two-factor authentication, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on, but typically that's in your settings and you'll find it. Most of these platforms have it. Definitely Zoom does. There's now a lot of Zoom bombing, such as this happened on Remembrance Day, where somebody streamed some porn in on a Remembrance Day ceremony at a school. Imagine how shocking that would be. Zoom now allows people to report and even suspend people that are misbehaving on their platform. But the big thing is, with all of these platforms, whether it's StreamYard, Zoom, you know, Google Meets or Microsoft Teams or any of these things, always act like your microphone and your camera are on, and always act like you would in a public place, because we've heard some of these horror stories of people that forget that their mic and their camera are on. What I mentioned earlier, the target of cyber criminals is our personally identifiable information. This is otherwise known as PII. Now, the Privacy Commissioner of Canada has actually defined what PII is, because a lot of times we don't really know what it is. It is information about an identifiable individual in a personal capacity. So it's not business information like what you'd find on a business card, like a name and a logo, a business email, or a business phone number. It is a name in association with some other kind of personal information, which would be possibly a name with a gender, a nickname, a number such as a credit card number, a social insurance number, a passport number. It could be a name in association with something found in social media, like a school that you go to, or a sports team that you play on, or a gym that you belong to. It could be data like medical history, criminal history, taxation. Or it could be something really sensitive like biometric information, which is the most sensitive of all, of course, a name in association with a birthmark, a tattoo, a photo, a fingerprint. And that is very, very sensitive, of course. It could be something that we share in social media. And of course, everybody shares lots of information, but that could be considered PII when it's a name in association with home ownership, where you live, where you work, your net worth, what kind of car you drive, where your vacation home is located. Or it could be some sort of health information, because a lot of people nowadays are saying, hey, I tested negative, I tested positive for COVID. So they just come right out and say this kind of stuff in social media, which would be considered PII. So we want to think about our PII and securing it right now, especially during this kind of a health crisis. So for one thing, we don't want to share personal PII in social media, although we normally do, our photos and such. But health information is something that we want to think about, especially if we share information about ourselves and others. So here's an example of somebody saying, hey, I tested positive and so did my family. So what are the repercussions in the future? So we want to think ahead in these kinds of situations. Be selective with the organizations that you share your health information with, and ask how it is being protected. So that's really important as well, because there's so many different ways. It's hard to keep up, really. There's all these apps. The Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner got involved with the Babylon app when it came out, contact tracing app, of course. Alberta has an app for contact tracing. We're wondering, should we join that one? William Shatner said, don't join Alberta, join the federal contact tracing app. I don't know. You have to make a lot of decisions right now. And we're really fortunate here in Alberta to have the Office of the Privacy Commissioner here, where we can look at some of the investigations that they have done. And so here's a really good example where they will say how PII has been placed at risk. Ransomware, phishing attacks, spear phishing, human error. Here's an example where 475 Albertans lost medical information, medical records in a breach involving a care center in Kalispell, Montana. So we have to be careful how we share our personal information. And we also have to know that organizations must protect it based on the sensitivity of the data that's being collected. So it should be appropriate to the sensitivity. So medical data should be secured at a higher level than maybe other data, advertising data, for an example. And that's really important. So I mentioned as well, like the OIPC here in Alberta, they legislate three main acts here in Alberta, which is the Freedom of Information Act for public agencies like the City of Calgary or Calgary Police Service, the Health Information Act, which would be for custodians like long-term care centers, hospitals, and clinics, for an example, and PIPA, which is the Personal Information Protection Act, and that would be for private sector organizations. So they really are, they're overseen by the Privacy Commissioner of Canada, but we're very fortunate to have their expertise here in Alberta. But basically, when it comes to our health data, it's the collection and the use, of course, that's really important, and we give consent when we give that information up. It's the disclosure where there's some problems. And that's why we want to be able to give consent when we give the information to people, and we ask them, how are you going to use it? But more importantly, especially with health information, how is it going to be disclosed? And there are exceptions during a public health emergency like we've been through here, because if it can't be, you can't give consent in a timely manner, or next of kin, or if it's an emergency, or if some other act kind of supersedes, then your health information is given without your consent. And that's the way some of these acts read. But if you're interested, I would really highly recommend that you go to the oipc.ab.ca website and just check things out. It's really important because our PII is a target, and where we share it is the most important part, because we want to make sure that people are not disclosing it against our will and our control, which is a problem because of all of these data breaches that are going on right now. And some of these organizations can't protect our information because maybe they don't have the money to do it. So this is where we need to step in. So we need to recognize some of these red flags of how our PII is placed at risk. Some we have control over, some we don't, like a network problem. How do we control that? Twitter went down for a couple of hours a couple of weeks ago. We can't do too much about that. Theft along the supply chain. We can maybe do a little bit about that, but for the most part, governments, privacy commissioners look into that sort of thing. Human error. We have some control over our own information, and we've all made mistakes where we're sending out emails and we think that we're putting it in the blind carbon copy, or we're thinking we're sending it to one person and it goes to another. That's basic human error. But organizations do that as well, and that happens all the time, which you'll see on that OIPC website too. But the main reason, or the main reason that our PII is put at risk is through criminality and through malicious acts, such as ransomware attacks, social engineering, phishing, spear phishing, luring, cyberbullying, even loss of a laptop computer or a USB. And that's how our PII is really put at risk. These are some examples of emails that are sent out right now during this pandemic. Now, notice this one is actually addressed to dear parents and guardians. It's not to just anybody, it's dear parents and guardians, because parents and guardians are really concerned, and they're probably more apt to click on that link because they're thinking about their kids or their grandparents. And it says it's from the Public Health Agency of Canada. So it's very deliberate. Testing kits, here's a text message, press 1, press 2 if you don't want one. Either way, you're pressing something you probably shouldn't be pressing. Using logos like the World Health Organization logo. We see that a lot in phishing, where they will take over those kinds of logos. And of course, they ask you to open an attachment because oftentimes those are, executable files that, you've got some malware in there, ransomware, or it could be just a click to a website that they're trying to get you to do. They use trust a lot, where here they've got a doctor's name, phone number, an email, a hospital, and they kind of build your curiosity, again, going for your emotions, saying, hey, here's a list of patients that are infected with COVID, but also predicting victims of COVID. Like, what does that mean? So you're really curious, right? And of course, the counterfeit PPE, back in April, they were saying, the media was saying, there's a shortage of PPE and we're not going to have masks. And again, that scare factor, right? So what do the cyber criminals do? They instantly start sending out these, emails to sell PPE. So when you get these emails, a few things to think about. Who's it from? The date and time it's sent. So have a look at the date and the time this one's sent at 4:46 a.m. That's a red flag. The subject and the body. And if all of that doesn't really make sense and you're not expecting this email, probably best to just delete it. Do not click anything in that particular email. So a few things to always think about with your when you get emails, especially right now. Now, 9 out of 10 of the domains that were registered in 2020 with Corona in the name, in the URL, were malicious. So somebody goes out and they actually do this on purpose, hoping that you are going to click on that URL. And it could be to drive clicks to a website. It could be once you get there, there's a drive-by download of some malware. It could be that they're asking for more personal information once you get there. You never know why, but it's just something to be aware of. You really have to know what you're doing right now, because there are people out there that are just trying to take advantage of us right now at this really uncertain situation in our lives. Credential stuffing, it's kind of a new thing. It's been around for a while, but basically they weaponize credentials, which means our email and our password. So there have been massive amounts of data breaches lately, big organizations that collect information from us of all kinds. They are targeted by hacking groups and just thieves that want to steal PII. They get hold of it, and some of these organizations, they keep this information in plain text, or some of the passwords are very, very easy to crack. And so what they do is they go about trying to use the credentials that they've got, the email and the password, and they try a whole bunch of different websites that most of us use. On average, about 25 different websites, and we all use about 6 different passwords. So we're repeating our passwords. But in this one in particular, the password for this person was Shadow. And when she received this, she couldn't sleep for 2 weeks. She was trying to figure it out, and she was all set to send some Bitcoin. And this is what they're doing. Again, it's very disconcerting when you get these kinds of things, and it's scary. So again, we want to be on the lookout for this. And of course, there are threats in these emails as well. When you get things and you're really curious, like Kathy Macdonald, look at this, OMG, or click on this cute little dog, it's just not worth it. Things just seem out of the ordinary. I wanted to click on that video, but instead I got hold of the person that had sent it to me. And of course, it was kind of a credential stuffing type of thing, account takeover of her messenger. So she was really happy to get that call. So we have to be really observant and slow down and think about what we're doing, especially right now, be really proactive, especially with our images. Our photographs, if they're out there and they're in the wrong hands, they can be used for sextortion, they can be used for extortion, coercion, blackmail, ransom, all sorts of things. Talk to your kids about the photos. It's not normal. It's not part of growing up to do sexting, even though people will tell you that. I've always said it is a dangerous activity. Do not do it. Talk to your kids about doing it, because those images never stay with just boyfriends and girlfriends. And once they hit the internet, they turn into an industry, and it's really an emotional problem for the subjects. Even with this thing called harm reduction, where you take a picture without a birthmark or anything identifiable. I don't believe in that personally. That's my opinion. And I really think that it's a good thing to talk to your kids about, because it's just not a safe activity. When you join into these platforms, make sure that you turn your camera and your microphone off so they don't default to start up right away. And that's an easy thing to do. As well, cover the lens on your laptop computers, especially if they're maybe in a bedroom, because there are remote access Trojans that can activate your web camera and take pictures without your knowledge. So that's something else to think about. Safeguard your images. So with your phones, even if you have like some really sensitive photos and you've decided, I'm going to get rid of that photo, or I'm going to download it to an external or something like that, it's possible that your iCloud has actually backed it up and you don't even know that. So there are hacking incidents of iCloud accounts. So you want to turn off that automatic backup of your iCloud of your photographs. That's a good idea as well, to be really proactive. And before you take your phone, your computer in to a maintenance shop, you know, especially if you've got anything sensitive in there, back it up. You know, make sure that you don't take anything sensitive in there, because these are valuable images and valuable information, possibly in the wrong hands. Be really proactive if you break up with your significant other. or if you've had a break into your car or to your house, or had a theft of your computer. First off, change your passwords. Next, be really cognizant of unexpected text messages or emails, because like I said, what they do is when they get a photo of you, what they will try to do is identify you, and then they will obviously dox you to send you text messages that say, hey, send me more pictures, or I'm going to continue to circulate these images around. So it can become really scary. The other thing is check your mobile device, especially, you know, even if it was a nice breakup with your significant other, make sure that you change and look for, any hidden apps that could maybe keep track of anything that you're doing without your knowledge, or even spyware on your computer that's listening in or looking at your photos or reading your text messages and such. So it's a good idea just to be really proactive as well. Like I mentioned earlier, there was a 245% increase in revenge porn in Australia. I mean, you can be assured that it is happening around the world. It's definitely happening in Canada as well. Revenge porn is, it's really significant these days, and so is cyberbullying and sextortion. It all kind of falls under that same heading, as well as voyeurism, online domestic abuse. It's kind of all there. So really quickly, if this happens to somebody that you know or to yourself or whatever, get some support. Because as soon as you see that image of yourself online, you're going to be really shocked. Have a friend, family member, a helpline, a hotline to talk to about it, maybe a lawyer or an online investigator. Then the next thing you're probably going to want to do is get hold of that website and say, hey, please take my photo off. Well, if what they say to you is, okay, I'll take it off, but it's going to cost you some Bitcoin or it's going to cost you some money, that's against the law. That is extortion. So you want to tell that to the police when you do report it. The next thing that you're going to need to do, and I know the order is kind of different, but I'm just walking, I've done these investigations and I'm just kind of, you know, from my experience, the next thing you're going to want to do is take a screenshot or print it off, or PDF, whatever it is you've found. And also take notes of how you found it. Did somebody tell you to go there? Did you find it on a Google search or something like that? How did you get there? The date and time you saw it. So make notes of that. Start a file, because these things aren't just a one-time occurrence. They continue on and on and on. Next, block and change your passwords. Again, you might want to call the police before you do that, but one way or the other, reduce your digital footprint and don't start communicating with people that are saying, hey, send me more photos, or they'll say, I'll stop altogether, just send me one more photo. It's just not worth it. Definitely call the police in these kinds of situations, get a police case number, and show them what you've got there, what kind of information you've got, and then they will go from there. If you've removed and shut down or deleted your Instagram or your Facebook account, that's fine. The police have their own way of investigating that. They've got their own law enforcement portals where they use different judicial orders to get information. So you don't need to worry about that. Just think about yourself. At any time, if you feel concerned for your safety, definitely call the police, call 911. It's very scary and you can feel like you're looking over your shoulder all the time. And continue to monitor. Set up alerts, which I'll show you a little bit later on in this presentation, and monitor. Keep track of what's going on, because it doesn't just end. It can go on for years, and it's very, very traumatic. With your young people in your home, talk to them, especially right now during this pandemic, because they're scared. They're worried as well. They may not tell you that, but young kids, they, especially if they're on the internet, they might be unsupervised sometimes, they might be acting out, who knows. Tell them to always come to you. You are their safe person to talk to. You are their person that's not going to take away their phone, not going to restrict their internet. You're going to help them and do everything you can. Now, there might be other consequences for their actions, but you don't want to threaten them with taking away their technology, because they might go underground on you. And you always want to be their person that they feel comfortable talking to you. And so have that conversation. I think that's really important. when it comes to, best practices or whatever, we always talk about passwords, and I won't go on too much about passwords, but really make them long, string 3 random words together, intersperse some special characters, some numbers, some upper and lower case. The big thing is not to use the same passwords on all these different websites. Mix it up. Use a password manager to help you manage your passwords. Change them up on a regular basis, but just don't duplicate those passwords, and help your kids with that, and your parents and seniors to do that as well. Because passwords are really the keys to the kingdom, of course, and they're a lot of trouble to manage as well. I really like this website. It's called Have I Been Pawned, or Have I Been Pwned? It helps you keep track of your email address and manage it, because it is possible that your email address has been caught up in one of these data breaches. So the fellow, his name is Troy Hunt. He's from Australia. He manages this, and he's built this great platform to check your email address. And so it will tell you, have you been pawned? My kathymacdonald.ca email is good. It hasn't been, and I can do that on a regular basis. So you can check it yourself. He works with law enforcement, he works with government, and so you can feel quite secure checking your email address on this, because he keeps track of all the data breaches in 2020, 2019, 2018. It goes back all the way, and all the kind of information that these organizations have accumulated and collected. So it's really good information. You can also check your password to see if it has ever been pawned. Now, I know a lot of people are afraid of checking their password or putting their password online. He's actually said, read more about Have I Been Pawned and how we protect your privacy of your passwords. It's up to you. I mean, I never recommend, other than this website, to do that, but it's up to you to give it a try. And again, it's not beyond the possibility that this website could be, scammed or spoofed or something like that. And you think you're using it and you're putting your email and your password in. That's possible. So I do want to just say that so you don't come after me if there's a problem. But, it's a great website, and I highly recommend it. Most people are shopping online these days, and it's very, very common to do that. So there's a few things to think about. I would always suggest that you use your home Wi-Fi rather than, going to some public location to put your credentials in, like your email, your password, logging into your credit card or anything along that line, or your Amazon account or PayPal or whatever. So always use your home Wi-Fi to do that shopping if you can. Look for the HTTPS. But that's not 100%. So that has been used. The bad guys can get that certification as well, the S. So don't just rely on seeing the padlock and the HTTPS, but it's something to look for as well. You want to do your due diligence all the time. Use a low-level credit card for your deliveries. If you can point a lot of people use Nest and different kind of doorbell cameras. If you can point it to your doorstep, so when it is delivered, you pick it up right away, that's a great idea. If you're expecting a parcel, you can track when it's coming. So you have an idea about the shipment, because most organizations will say, hey, the shipment's on the way. You want to also be careful of that, because the cyber criminals have been sending out those notifications as well. And of course, they want you to click and say, hey, when's my parcel coming? Which is phishing and ransomware. They put a lot of stuff in those links. So it's always tricky. If you are expecting a parcel and you get this, is that the shipper that you're using or they're using? Is it a UPS? Is it SPUD? Is it DHL, which is often, very often scammed? So focus on the delivery, track the shipment, and if you can't pick it up from your doorstep, talk to your neighbor and say, hey, if you see that shipment on my doorstep, can you pick it up for me? And I'll do the same to you. It's always good to get to know your neighbors. of course, to watch your house. But, you know, everybody's getting these deliveries all the time, and there's a lot of delivery theft. I mean, there's even an idea of having the delivery to a business, and that could work as well. There's more people and possible that somebody else could pick it up. But, you know, figure something out, especially if you're getting a lot of deliveries, because there is theft. Privacy settings, you know, set them. Facebook has over 250 different ones. Just have a look, take 10 minutes once a month. Use a virtual private network to anonymize your IP or just hide your IP. That's a good idea as well, so you can't be tracked as easily. And control the metadata that is being exposed in your mobile device. To do that, you know, you can go into general, into privacy, look at your location services, and turn off those settings that you don't really need. But look at that metadata, which is the data within the data. It's kind of that electronic fingerprint of where you're going and what you're doing. And that's around your camera, your microphone, your calendar, what else? Location and that sort of thing. So have a look at that. And again, just being really proactive. Always use your two-factor authentication. So two-factor typically involves you've got the access to the website, you put in your cell phone number, they will send you a verification code which you then put in, and of course you verify and you have access. Now, if all of a sudden you get a bunch of verification notices and you're not trying to get into your account, you know that somebody's trying to crack into your account. So it's a good notification as well. But there's two-factor and there's multi-factor. Two factors are two factors, you know, what you have and what you know. Multi-factor is what you have, what you know, what you are, which could be an iris scan or a fingerprint or a face scan or something like that. So it's a little bit higher up, but a lot of organizations are using two-factor, and I would highly recommend it. If you're not sure that within your category of emails or banks or businesses or shipping, have two-factor, you can go to TwoFactorOff.org, and it actually keeps track of all the different organizations that use two-factor. Again, highly recommend it. This is a great website as well. Which ATM would you use? Most people are using debit and ATM, of course, these days. And this is just an example. So these four machines, you know, they look a little sketchy. They've got a lot of graffiti. They're not well maintained. They're kind of hidden behind corners and in dark crevices. These four are in New York City. This bank of ATMs looks a little bit neater, well maintained. It looks like it's a public place. You'd feel a little bit safer using those ATMs, perhaps. This is in San Salvador, which is kind of interesting, right? Because you would think the opposite. This one here, it's an ATM in the back of a vehicle. This was taken in Calgary at McMahon Stadium at a football game. I thought it was ingenious, actually. So the driver is right there. He's standing, you know, not looking at you entering your number on the keypad, but he's there. So you've got almost like a guard that's watching this all take place. And there's also something called crime prevention through environmental design right in front of you. There's that yellow piece of paint, and you know that that is the safety guard. Once you step over that, you're kind of in that bank, and you step back, you're able to use it. You're the customer again. I would personally, I would feel safer using that one than the other ones. But you know, everybody's, you know, you got to look at what you've got in front of you, and really think about the cyber criminals are using these machines for skimming and for approaching people when they are doing banking transactions. I thought this was kind of interesting because this shows a skimming device being put onto a keypad. These three guys are all working together. The fellow with the satchel, like the white shirt here in the back with the strap, he's going to just snap a skimming device right onto that keypad. The other fellow, he's busy buying potato chips, big bags of potato chips. The three of them are all together. They're friendly. They're talking. They're distracting the cashier. This guy simply programs that skimming device in a second. And of course, they're pointing, they pay in cash, and away they go. Like they're all working together. This is social engineering. They're using somewhat anonymity, very believable looking. They're staging this. They've probably looked at the layout for the store many, many times. And of course, they're friendly and pretty nimble, and away they go. And probably in 2 weeks, when they come back to pick up that skimming device, this cashier would never have guessed it was those 3 nice guys that did this. So this is how easy it is to put these kinds of devices on. Very professional. Usually it's some sort of organized crime, because you just can't find these devices anywhere. But you always want to be cautious and selective and aware when you're using debit and ATM and machines. Look for any external devices that are just kind of standing out. Funny looking cords that are hanging from the back. Again, you want to minimize the number of credit cards you carry in your wallet. You don't want to put your PIN number in your wallet, of course, and slim it down. Slim down your wallet altogether. Don't carry as much as you need. Just absolutely what you need when you go to those kinds of places. Monitor your bank activity. And of course, memorize your PIN number. This is some really good information from Krebs on security, who does a great, I guess a good story on ATM theft and skimming devices. So pretty interesting. As well, during the pandemic, a lot of us are using auction sites, buying and selling and cleaning our house and renovating and stuff like that. Everybody seems to be doing it. So there are a lot of scammers on these auction sites. Typically, as soon as you post something for sale, you'll immediately get a couple of texts saying, I'm really interested, what's the lowest price you'll take? And basically what they want is the lowest price, and then they say, I'll take it. I'll wire you the money. What is your PayPal account number or whatever? They try to get you some money immediately. But cyber criminals are pretty lazy people. I think they take the easy way out. So what you need to do is ask them questions, especially of a technical nature. They get pretty tired of that. Take pictures. Use the intranet to do your own open source intelligence on names, email addresses, phone numbers, serial numbers, VIN numbers, anything you've got. Do your own due diligence on it. Look at the reviews, read the feedback on people, ask if it's is it a fair price? Because they want to overpay what you're asking. Another scam, there's a lot of auction site scams. That would take a whole hour actually just to talk about that. But one of the things that they do that's fairly common is they will say, hey, the first bidder on this auction they backed out. So you're the second bidder, so congratulations, you've got this product or whatever it is that they're selling. So that's one of the scams they do. And of course, you want to stay on the platform. You don't want to step off. If you're buying on Amazon, stay on the Amazon financial platform. Stay on PayPal if you're doing things on Kijiji and such. So that's really important as well, because they will reimburse you. And they're also very diligent when there are scammers on their platform. The other thing is, have a plan when you're meeting people in the real world. Have a plan, ask questions, as many as you possibly can, and then meet in a public place. Take a couple of people with you. Take pictures if you can of a license plate. Do it in a public place. A lot of police stations now, I'm not sure exactly which one will allow you to do the transactions in their parking lot. But it's always a good idea to do that and be really careful, because you really don't know who you're meeting up with. And only cash, no checks. Never take a check from anybody. If you're deleting your Facebook, which a lot of people are these days, you can ask Facebook and they will send you a zip copy. It takes a couple of days and it's all of your activity, all your photos, everything. A lot of people are getting rid of their Facebook these days, and that's a good idea. It's pretty easy to just take your computer into a computer shop and have the ransomware removed from that computer. But that's not going to help understand how big of a problem ransomware is here in Calgary, for an example, or in Alberta. So reporting things to the police it's an important step to take. And I know that their resources are stretched to the limit. They're having a hard time keeping up with the investigations. They do a great job with anything to do with kids. So anything to do with kids, report it to the police. Luring, definitely any kind of cyberbullying, use of intimate images, that kind of thing. Definitely you need to report that to the police. But anything to do with crimes in progress, weapons involved, definitely 911. Anything against the law in the real world is against the law in the virtual world. Anything to do with violence, threats against people or property, anything to do with like if there's an expectation of privacy and somebody's got a covert camera or voyeurism, that sort of thing, definitely report that. Criminal harassment, where they're unrelenting, they keep sending you text messages after text messages, or they stalk you from platform to platform to platform. That's criminal harassment. So that's covered under the Criminal Code of Canada. So, definitely those kinds of things should be reported. Hate crimes, cracking of passwords, hacking, definitely. Theft, theft of a laptop or a mobile device. If you're unsure, I would suggest that you call the non-emergency line, talk to the dispatcher, tell them the problem, and they will let you know whether they're going to send a car out or if you should go to the front counter and report it. But I think it's really important, and the police here in Calgary, we're so fortunate to have the police here in Calgary. They've got a fantastic high-tech crimes unit. They've got a cyber support team. They've got really, really well-trained cyber investigators and a great crime prevention unit as well. So I would suggest that we're really lucky here in Calgary to have the police that we do have helping us with our cybercrime. And I know that 12 CSI is a big supporter as well. So you can always talk to Larry and Daphne, and they will point you in the right direction as well with the police. What else can you do? Well, I've got two really quick stories for you. I don't want to go on too long, although it's probably long enough already. Leave enough time for questions. But you have a lot of power. We have a lot of power. And if we see something, we should do something. So here's a really quick story. I retired from the police. I have a little company and I do presentations. I'll do conferences and I do things like that, lunch and learns and such. So I get this email from my Kathy Macdonald website, and it's inviting me to speak at a conference in Aberdeen, Scotland. Well, I was pretty thrilled. I'd never been to Aberdeen, Scotland. My last name is Macdonald. I thought, well, I want to go. So, but I knew it was a hoax. I knew it was fake. But deep down, I was really wishing it was true. So I read this thing. I do not click on the link that's in the email because, I stopped and I thought about things and I used my better judgment, and I decided to look up this cathedral in St. Andrews in Aberdeen, Scotland, and looked up this Reverend Poulalan. So sure enough, I find this church and the Reverend Poulalan, and I contact the administrator of the church and I say, hey, I got this email. Thank you so much for this invitation, but I really don't know if it's fake. It seems like it just doesn't seem legit. So I just wanted to make you aware of this. And I immediately got an email back from this administrator saying, thanks very much. Yes, the Reverend's email account was hacked. And the police are not able to do too much about it, but we've been receiving calls from lots of different people. So I thought that was kind of interesting because this is an example of spear phishing. Somebody went to all the trouble of tailoring an email to try to, again, social engineer me into clicking on something, or maybe saying, oh, I'd love to come and speak. The next thing they do is, well, we'll send you a deposit check, which you can deposit in your bank. And then, of course, they'd cancel. And then they'd ask me to refund the check, which is probably what they were doing. Anyway, I took the email and I ran it through Have I Been Pawned, cathedral@aberdeen.anglican.org, and it said, oh no, pawned. So it verified that. So again, this is how Have I Been Pawned can come in handy for you to check your email addresses, and you can do something. It's, I didn't report this to the police. Obviously, I wasn't a victim of anything, but it's good to know. Another story. do see something, do something. So when I do presentations, I often go to the Canadian AntiFraud Center website. It's a fantastic website. It keeps track of all the identity theft and fraud and that sort of thing in Canada. So I get stats for these presentations, and so I went to it. I know the website. I've been to it many times, and it's in English and it's in French. And notice it's got the HTTPS. So I go to this website. Now I use DuckDuckGo as my search engine. I don't use Google because Google tracks you when they send you advertising, whereas DuckDuckGo doesn't track you and it doesn't keep your history. So I like it. It's maybe not as powerful, but anyway, I use it. And I go to the website. And this is what I find. It looks totally different than the Canadian AntiFraud website. So I thought, well, this is really interesting. So I click on, are you a victim? And I look at it, and it's got the lorem ipsum. So the Latin of the template that you can buy for designing a website. And of course, it's on, are you a victim? So what they're doing is, if I was a victim, I would probably report to that particular page. So I thought, well, this can't possibly be the Canadian AntiFraud website. So I go back to the URL and have a closer look. And what do I see? Well, after the HTTPS, I see anti-fraud. And then in the French version, I see ANIT. This is called typo squatting or cyber squatting. And so they've made a spelling mistake, hoping, of course, that I'm going to be putting in information, or it could be a drive-by download of some malware or something else. But it's called cyber squatting and typo squatting. But for them to actually try to defraud people that are going to the Canadian AntiFraud website is pretty brazen. Anyway, I called them, and I think they were fairly embarrassed, but they were really grateful. And they said, thank you so much for calling. I felt good. I did something, and I went back there a couple hours later, and they had already fixed it. But again, it just shows when you see something, take a screenshot, do something if you can. And I think everybody plays a role in making the internet safe and secure. You can also monitor. You can set up alerts. There's a lot of different alerts you can do, like a Google alert. If you want to put your name, your phone number, your email address in there, you'll get an alert sent to you if your name, your phone number, your email ever comes up, which is helpful. If you can't afford to hire like a DMC takedown service to take down, pictures that are of you on websites and such, you could always just use TinEye, tineye.com. It's free, and it's a tool where you can put a photo in there, and it will scour the internet to see if that particular photo shows up anywhere else. So if you're on a dating site and somebody sends you a picture of this absolutely gorgeous model and says, hey, do you want to go out? Put that through TinEye and just see what comes up, because you will find that a lot of those Hollywood actors and movie stars and models are used for these online dating sites. So, but anyway, it's free, and it's kind of interesting. Lots of great resources here in Canada. And I would really draw your attention to the Kids Help Phone, because right now, young people with this pandemic, they may not show it on the outside, but there's a lot of people with mental health issues right now, especially young people. So they need someone to talk to. These are trained professionals. They will answer the phone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they will actually talk to you on the phone. And so I highly recommend Kids Help Phone. I have that number on hand for you. Canadian AntiFraud Center, and all sorts of youth and children's resources, such as the Canadian Centre for Child Protection, CyberTip, and needhelpnow.ca, which really helps with sexting and those kinds of issues. They'll walk you through it. So we're really fortunate here in Canada around these kind of resources, and definitely in Alberta and Calgary. Larry had kindly mentioned my book at the beginning. I was really thrilled to be able to write a book and publish it. And it's all about cybercrime awareness, prevention, and response. It's available. I have got copies myself, but you can also order some here, and they make a great Christmas present if you're interested. So with that, I think I'm finished talking for now, and I would really love to answer any questions that you might have. And I do want to mention, if I can't answer them, because, you know, I don't know everything that's going on. This whole field is so specialized. I will certainly get the answers, and I will get them back to Larry and Daphne for you, so that you will have a good answer for any question. So feel free, anything that might come up, please answer it or ask it. So thank you very much, and I will turn this back over to Larry.
Tremendous. Well, as always, fantastic. But I don't know how I can do what I'm doing and be safe by covering my camera. So I'm going to risk it. I also wanted to point out something really super interesting too, and I'm not really good at show and tell on these cameras, but you mentioned the Kids Help Phone.
Yeah.
It's right on the front cover of
Good.
our newsletter that goes out to 30,000 folks in the area in East Calgary, and it's always on the front cover because we think it's a super important resource as well. Yeah, so it's question time. I just want to, some people joined late, so I just want to go through some of the housekeeping bits again. We want to thank the Calgary Community Standards Fund for their support of this project. We'd also like you to click the like button on our presentation on Facebook or YouTube, and also like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we're going to get very aggressive in terms of the number of videos that we're going to do over the next little while, because it is a pandemic, and we're here to educate, and we want to make, you know, educate you and connect you as much as we can. So 2021, we've got lots of stuff going on. So make sure you subscribe and like, and check us out at 12csi.ca. Also, the presentation is recorded, so you can go back and watch again. If you missed the first half and you came in late, you can go back and watch it again, as well as recommend it to others. And if you have any questions, certainly put them in the chat. I'm going to start with one of my own, because it recently a family member's father had taken ill, and of course they have a little family Facebook page, and so there was a posting of, you know, this is what's happened, this is where he is at the hospital, and you had mentioned about putting your own personal sort of health pieces out there. Maybe talk a little bit about, you know, I want people to know that my dad's ill, or I want people to know that my grandma's at this hospital. What would you say to that?
Well, it's a really good point, Larry. There we go. And a really good point. I'm just getting some echoes back. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay. A good point. So with Facebook, again, knowing your friends and really just ensuring that you've got your privacy settings set so that, you know, when you are communicating with just your friends. But, you know darn well that things will get shared and sent around. So, you know, something really, really personal like that, although it might be for friends and family, you don't want to share other people's news, like other people's good news or other people's bad news, unless they're okay with that. If there's a reason for that, you know, you're having an event that's you're inviting people to it, or I know that people do this all the time, and they will share these kinds of bits and pieces of personal information. And only if it's okay with the person whose name is being shared, I would think, ask for their consent for sure. But I know it's really tough right now, and everybody's well-meaning as well. And really, there's nothing malicious or you know, bad about it. It's just that information is really of a personal nature, and that's the only thing you really have to be cognizant of.
So if they have posted something say it's been up there for a day or two, does taking it down afterwards provide any kind of comfort?
Absolutely, it does. The only thing is that you have to know that you have no idea how many people have seen, have taken screenshots, have shared it. And that's the only thing. So I guess taking it down after one day, it mitigates a lot of the harm. But again, you have no idea how many people have seen it or have shared it or taken copies of it or printed it off or whatever, screenshot it.
Okay. Can you talk about the steps one should follow if their debit card has been compromised or feel like you've been scammed?
Okay. Well, that's a really good question. So something is probably going to tip you off. Something is, you're already suspecting that your debit card has been compromised in some way. Probably the first thing to do would be to contact your bank and let them know, because they will immediately put a freeze on that and they will watch for any fraudulent activity. They'll ask you the last time that you've used it. I would suggest that you get hold of your credit card as well. So not only your ATM, but I mean, if it's the same bank, they talk to one another, but you can also call the actual branch, but you can also call your credit card company, and you could even call your credit bureau if you wanted to. The only thing that to be really aware of is that if the bank is the victim, then they're going to compensate you for your loss. And they probably won't tell you too much about what's going on. And you probably won't hear too much ever again about it. They'll send you a new card, and you'll carry on from there. If it's a loss of a card and you found it again, let them know, and then they can reactivate it. But oftentimes they'll put fraud alerts and they'll just freeze any activity. So you go to use it again and it's frozen. So, but I would start with the bank. Depending upon the situation, the bank might advise you to contact the police. It might be an idea to contact the police anyway, and you probably get a police case number at that point, which you can use to give to your credit bureau, and they will put it on file. Kind of a fraud alert type of thing.
Yeah, to follow up on that a little bit, I had a call from a scammer who said they were my bank and that my credit card had been compromised. And one of the things that you said in your presentation about scammers are lazy, I asked many questions and they just simply hung up. Got tired of me asking questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, we've run out of questions. Does anybody have a question? Let me think of one. Well, so one of the things I didn't hear in your presentation was about your cell phone listening to you. I mean, you talked about resetting your settings, but I know, for example, my son in Vancouver, he goes to a certain train station, and there's a store at that train station, and he all of a sudden gets ads from that store, even though he's never been in the store.
Right.
So they're always listening, right? So maybe a little bit about, how you can prevent your phone and your devices from listening to you.
Right. So you can go into all of your apps and you can find out if your microphone is on. So for an example, with Instagram, they're, I don't know, they're definitely listening to you, and they will, if you're talking about some sort of exercise equipment, all of a sudden you get these ads for, and it's on your Instagram wall. So, there's something there. So maybe you want to make sure that and Instagram is owned by Facebook, is owned by WhatsApp. So you also have to remember that all of these are connected. But with your apps, just go in there and just see, do you really need your microphone on? Do you really need your camera on for Twitter all the time? Really just use these services when they are vital to use them. So just be cognizant of the microphone, because a lot of these apps are listening to you and picking that up. For sure.
I'm going to take a picture of something here just so I can show you.
Okay.
Now, when we talk about our, maybe I'm terrible at this, but there's a little green light
Uh-huh.
right next to my camera right now because I'm using it, right?
Right.
So if somebody comes on to my computer, is that green light going to come on warning me that somebody's accessed my camera, or are they able to not have that green light come on?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think when your green light is on, it means that the camera is working
Right.
and it is activated. Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as can somebody um, activate your camera and not have that green light going, I don't know that answer, but I can certainly get back to you and find out about that.
Well, yeah, maybe I'll, ask more of the hardware people, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's, again, like I said, it's so specialized. There are people that are just specialists in cell phones or just specialists in cameras or, network. And I mean, it just goes on and on and on. So, and just security. I guess my thing is more prevention, just practical tips for users, but education as well. But there are these really specialized people that know what they're doing for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Do we have one more question?
Oh, okay.
Okay, here we go. What about the phone calls that we receive from the CRA?
Ah, yes. There are a lot of those recorded ones, as well as people that are calling all the time. And of course, they are scammers. You can hear it's a boiler room in the back. You can hear people talking. I would suggest you block those people, those calls. When I get them, and oftentimes you can tell that it's going to be a scammer because the number that shows up is like 15 numbers long, but sometimes they are 403 numbers as well. So they can spoof those calls as well, but you know that they're from another country. Do your best. You can call your provider and say, I'm getting an extraordinary amount of calls. Can you, advise me? Can you block some of these numbers? You can block them yourself as well. If I pick up and there is somebody there, they start talking to me, I like to talk to them, and I'll ask them, one of the first questions I'll ask them is, do you want my credit card number? And they'll hang up on me. So, you can talk to them too, and they'll never phone you again, the same one, but they get mad too. Yeah, you can block these people, and the CRA definitely, they put alerts on their website. They will say, we've had a number of complaints in a certain area. There are a lot of these Microsoft type of calls that will come in where they want remote access to your computer. And so they'll say, hey, I can tell that you're trying to get on a website and you're having problems. And of course, they'll ask you to go to a URL. They'll have remote access to your computer, and of course they can look and they can see what's on your computer. It can put your PII at risk if somebody's got your information on their computer and they're doing these kinds of things. So, really, it's that scam's been around for a long time. The RCMP have made some massive arrests, but because it works, these people will continue to do it. It's easy. They have got setups to do it, boiler rooms, and they just phone people. And it's really a tough investigation. But the police, the government, they're working on it, but it's still happening.
Yeah, and getting back to the again, asking lots of questions. Again, I had one of these hackers that wanted into my computer, and I had heard somebody say it, and who knows, it might have been you at your last presentation. But ask them where they're from, and then look up on the Weather Channel what the weather's like. So I asked them, "Where are you calling from?" And of course, they were calling from New York.
Yeah.
And I looked up really quick. Well, what's the weather like there? And I could hear clickety 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 click because they were doing the same thing because they weren't in New York. So yeah, the lots of questions thing really is a you know, question yourself, and
Yeah.
then it's real, and then ask the scammer a few
Yeah.
questions.
They feel uncomfortable, and they can be they can get really obstinate and hostile as well. But you know, best to just not talk to them at all, and block their number on your mobile device for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's it for questions. So we're
All
going to
right.
let you off the hook, Kathy.
Okay, no
Um,
problem.
Thank you very much. This was an amazing presentation, as they always are. The one thing I love about your presentations is that no one is the same. It's always updated. It's always, you know, present day. You do your research and you make sure that you're on top of what's going on right now in the world. So thank you again.
Oh,
Very, very much appreciate it. And for all those folks out there who enjoyed it, hope you enjoyed it. Maybe send us a little note that we can send over to Kathy that you know, with your thoughts. And don't forget to like and subscribe and do all that fun stuff that I had mentioned. So with that, I will bid us adieu and good night and a great enjoy your holiday time, everybody.
yeah. Thanks very much. Thank you very much, Larry. Appreciate it. Bye, Daphne, and thanks to 12 CSI.
Say bye, Daphne.
Bye.
See you then. Merry Christmas, happy holidays. Bye-bye.